As the hours deepen and the world outside softens its edges, let this voice be a quiet companion in the room, a steady presence that asks nothing of you but to rest. Let the mind slow, let the weight of the day settle, and let the stories of other times drift through the space between wakefulness and sleep. If the work here brings a sense of calm to your night, a simple acknowledgement is always quietly appreciated. A like and a subscription are gentle ways to show support, but only if they feel right for you in this moment. The night begins with a room in a great house, somewhere in the English countryside, in a century before electricity. A single candle burns on a heavy wooden table, its flame small and uncertain against the dark. A man sits at the table, his head resting on his hand, his eyes closed not in sleep but in a kind of exhausted waiting. He is a physician, though the word does not carry the same meaning it would in later centuries. He is a man trained in Latin, in the reading of ancient texts, in the careful observation of the stars and the seasons. But here, in this room, with a patient lying in the bed against the far wall, his training offers him only the comfort of ritual. The patient is a woman, her face pale and damp with a fever that will not break. Her breath comes in shallow, uneven rhythms. The physician has done what the books instruct. He has examined her urine in a glass flask, holding it to the candlelight, comparing its color to the illustrations in a worn manuscript. He has felt the pulse at her wrist, counting its beats against the murmur of a Latin prayer. He has diagnosed an imbalance of the humors, an excess of blood and yellow bile causing the heat and the agitation. The treatment, according to the authority of Galen, is clear. The body must be brought back into balance. And so, earlier in the evening, he performed a bloodletting. He used a lancet, a small, sharp blade, to open a vein in her arm. The blood flowed into a shallow bowl, dark and thick in the dim light. He watched it carefully, noting its color and consistency, looking for signs that the corruption was leaving her body. When enough had been collected, he bound the wound with a strip of clean linen. The patient did not wake, did not stir, which he took as a sign that the procedure had been tolerated. Now, hours later, she is no better. The fever remains. The shallow breathing continues. The physician sits in the silence, listening to the creak of the old house, the distant rustle of wind in the eaves. He does not doubt his actions. He doubts the strength of the patient's constitution, the severity of the imbalance. The system he follows is complete. It explains everything. If the treatment fails, the failure lies not in the theory but in the unique, stubborn nature of the illness itself. This is the quiet tragedy of certainty. It offers no room for questioning, only for waiting and for watching. The candle flame flickers. The night stretches on. The physician will sit here until dawn. A guardian at the edge of a mystery his learning cannot truly penetrate. Morning comes slowly to the medieval town, the light arriving as a gradual lifting of darkness rather than any sudden brightness. In the narrow streets between timber-framed houses, the day begins not with noise but with the small, necessary sounds of survival. A wooden bucket scrapes against stone at the communal well. A door opens and closes, its leather hinges creaking softly. A woman steps out, her breath visible in the cold air, and begins the slow process of coaxing a fire to life in the outdoor hearth. The smoke rises straight up at first, a pale gray column against the pale gray sky, before the wind catches it and pulls it apart. Inside one of these houses, a man sits on the edge of a straw mattress, his head in his hands. He has not slept. A toothache has kept him awake, a deep, pulsing pain that radiates through his jaw and into his skull. He is a farmer, a man accustomed to physical labor and the small discomforts of a hard life. But this pain is different. It is relentless. It offers no respite. His wife moves quietly around the small room, placing a piece of dried bread and a cup of small beer on the table. He cannot eat. The thought of chewing sends a fresh wave of anticipation through the pain. The local barber is also a surgeon, and the farmer knows he must go. The barber's shop is not a place of comfort. It is a place of practical, unadorned intervention. The farmer walks through the streets, his hand pressed to his jaw, the cold air doing nothing to soothe the fire within. He passes the stalls of the market, where merchants are setting out their goods. Pots of coarse clay, bundles of dried herbs, a few stringy chickens in wooden cages. No one pays him any mind. Pain is a familiar presence here. It is woven into the fabric of daily existence, as common as hunger or fatigue. The barber's shop is a single room. A chair sits in the center. On a shelf against the wall, tools are laid out. Scissors, combs, razors, and alongside them a small brass bowl and a lancet. In a clay jar on the floor, several leeches coil slowly in murky water. The barber is an older man, his hands steady and his expression neutral. He has done this countless times. He looks at the farmer, at the swollen line of his jaw, and nods. He understands the problem without needing to be told. The humors are unbalanced. Too much blood has collected in the head, causing heat and pressure. The solution is to draw it out. The farmer sits in the chair. The barber selects a leech from the jar, letting it attach to the gum, just above the aching tooth. The sensation is strange, a slight tugging, a faint coolness. Then another leech is placed, and another. The farmer closes his eyes. He does not watch. He waits, as the physician waited by the bedside the night before, for the ancient, visible logic of the body to assert itself. The leeches swell, darkening with the blood they draw. The barber watches with quiet satisfaction. Something is happening. The body is being drained of its excess. This is the meaning of treatment. Not cure, but action. Visible, tangible action. The farmer will sit here for a long time, in the dim light of the barber's shop, while the small, patient creatures do their work, and the pain in his jaw slowly, perhaps, subsides, or perhaps simply fades into the background of a much larger discomfort. Beyond the town walls, the land opens into a vast and rolling countryside. Fields lie fallow or are planted with the straggling remains of the autumn harvest. Here and there, small villages cluster in the folds of the hills, their smoke rising to merge with the low clouds. The pace of life is slow, measured by the movement of the sun and the needs of animals and crops. It is a life of repetition, of small tasks endlessly renewed. A man walks behind a plow, his feet sinking into the cold earth. A woman carries water from a stream, the weight of the yoke familiar on her shoulders. Children gather kindling, their hands small and quick. There is no sense of progress in this work, only continuation. The same fields, the same tasks, the same seasons, repeating for generations. In a small monastery, set apart from the village by a low stone wall, a different kind of labor occupies the hours. The monks move through their day in a rhythm of prayer and work. In the scriptorium, a single monk sits at a high desk, a sheet of parchment stretched before him. He is copying a manuscript, a medical text filled with diagrams and recipes. His pen moves slowly, carefully, forming each letter with deliberate precision. The text describes the properties of various herbs. For a pain in the side, a poultice of wormwood and honey. For a persistent cough, a syrup made from horehound and licorice root. For the trembling sickness, a draught of powdered peony seed in warm wine. The monk does not question these remedies. They are part of the received wisdom of the ages, passed down from scribe to scribe, from monastery to monastery. He copies them faithfully, his hand guided by tradition, not by experiment. The work is slow, meditative. The The scratch of the quill is the only sound in the room. Outside, the bell for the next service will ring soon, calling the brothers to the chapel. The rhythm of the day is unbroken. Prayer, work, study, sleep. The monk's world is one of order and certainty, a small island of learning in a vast sea of unknowing. The medical texts he copies will be read, and their instructions will be followed. A farmer with a sick cow will consult a similar text, or seek out a local wise woman who knows the properties of plants by heart. A nobleman suffering from a persistent ailment will send for a physician who carries a copy of Galen in his saddlebag. The knowledge spreads slowly, like light from a single candle, reaching into the darkest corners of the countryside, but it is always the same knowledge, fixed and unchanging. The afternoon deepens. The light in the scriptorium shifts, becoming warmer, more golden. The monk pauses in his copying to trim his quill with a small knife. He looks out the narrow window at the hills beyond the wall. They are the same hills his predecessors looked upon 100 years before, and the same hills their successors will look upon 100 years hence. The world does not change quickly. Illness does not change. The remedies do not change. The monk returns to his work, dipping the quill in the ink. He writes the final line of a recipe for a wound salve, a mixture of ground comfrey root, beeswax, and the rendered fat of a sheep. It is a good recipe. It has been used for as long as anyone can remember. It will be used again. As evening falls, the focus of the world draws inward. In the great hall of a manor house, a fire burns in a central hearth, the smoke rising to a louver in the roof. The lord of the manor sits at a high table, his family and retainers arranged on benches below. The meal is simple but substantial. A thick stew of mutton and root vegetables, dark bread, small beer. The conversation is quiet, concerned with the management of the estate, the price of wool, the condition of the roads. Outside, the wind has risen, and rain begins to fall, pattering against the shutters. The sound is comforting, a reminder of the warmth and shelter within. After the meal, the lord retires to a smaller chamber, a solar, where a fire also burns. He has a headache, a dull, persistent pressure behind his eyes that has troubled him for days. It began, he thinks, after a long day of riding in the cold wind. His wife suggests a remedy. She sends a servant to the still room, a small stone chamber off the kitchen where she prepares ointments and cordials. The servant returns with a small pottery jar. Inside is a salve made from lavender and rue, mixed with bear's grease. The lord's wife applies a small amount to his temples, rubbing it in with slow, circular motions. The scent is sharp, herbal, cutting through the smell of wood smoke. The lord leans back in his chair, closing his eyes. The warmth of the fire, the gentle pressure on his temples, the familiar scent. It is a kind of comfort, even if the headache does not immediately fade. The treatment is an act of care, a small ritual performed in the quiet of the evening, a way of pushing back against the discomfort of the body. The servant returns to the still room to tidy the day's work. It is a small, cold room, lined with shelves. Jars and bottles of all sizes stand in neat rows, each one labeled in the lady's careful hand. Comfrey ointment, rose water, syrup of violets, a tincture of poppy for those who cannot sleep, a small bag of dried feverfew. The servant knows what each jar contains, though she cannot read the labels. She has learned by watching, by smelling, by listening. The still room is a place of quiet power, a repository of knowledge that exists outside the Latin texts of the physicians. It is knowledge passed from mother to daughter, from mistress to maid, a living tradition of observation and experiment. A handful of this for a fever, a pinch of that for a wound that will not heal, a decoction of willow bark for the pains of old age. The remedies are humble, drawn from the garden and the hedgerow, but they are used every day by every person in the manor and the village beyond. They are the first line of defense against a world of illness and injury. The night deepens again. The rain continues to fall, a soft, steady sound on the roof of the still room. The servant extinguishes the single candle and makes her way through the dark passages to her own small room. She will sleep soundly, her body tired from the day's work. Tomorrow, she will gather more herbs, prepare more ointments, tend to the small ailments of the household. The work is endless, but it is also grounding. It connects her to the earth, to the seasons, to the slow, continuous cycle of growth and decay. She does not think about cures or theories. She thinks about the plants she will need, the right time to harvest them, the proper way to dry them and store them. Her knowledge is practical, rooted in the specific, the tangible. It is a different kind of certainty, one based not on ancient authority but on daily experience. It is the certainty of the hands, not the books. In a larger town, a day's journey from the manor, a different kind of medical practice exists. Here, in a house near the market square, lives a man known as an apothecary. His shop is a wonder of the senses. Dried herbs hang from the rafters. Jars of roots, seeds, and powders line the walls. The air is thick with the smell of rosemary, myrrh, and something sharper, more metallic. The apothecary serves a wealthier clientele, merchants and guild masters who can afford more exotic ingredients. He imports spices from the East, rare gums from Arabia, and, from time to time, small quantities of powdered stone or mineral. A merchant's wife enters the shop, her face half hidden by a hood. She has a complaint she does not wish to discuss in detail, a persistent weakness, a lack of energy that has plagued her for months. The apothecary listens, his expression impassive. He asks a few questions about her sleep, her appetite, the regularity of her body's functions. Then he turns to his shelves. He selects a small, stoppered vial. Inside is a fine, grayish powder. It is powdered sapphire, he explains, ground from a gemstone of great purity. It is a remedy for weakness, for melancholy, for the general debility of the spirit. The price is high, but the merchant's wife does not hesitate. She pays in silver and leaves with the vial clutched in her hand. The instructions are simple. A pinch of the powder, dissolved in a cup of warm wine, taken each morning before breakfast. The apothecary watches her go. He knows the powder will do nothing, at least nothing that can be measured by any means available to him. But he also knows that the merchant's wife will believe it will do something. And in that belief there is a kind of power. The expensive, rare substance will become a focus for her hope. She will take it each morning with intention, and that intention, that small ritual of self-care, may be more healing than any mineral. The apothecary does not think of this as deception. He thinks of it as managing expectations, as providing a service that the patient requires. The body is mysterious. The mind is even more so. If a powdered gemstone can soothe the mind, then perhaps it can soothe the body as well. Or perhaps not. It is impossible to know for sure. The only certainty is uncertainty itself. As the night wears on, the streets of the town grow quiet. The shutters are closed, the doors barred. Inside the houses, people lie in their beds, some sleeping, some wakeful. A woman listens to her child's breathing, shallow and fast, and worries. A man feels the familiar ache in his joints and knows it will be another long night. An old woman, her mind wandering, murmurs prayers to saints she has prayed to all her life. The darkness holds them all, the sick and the well, the worried and the peaceful. The night is a great equalizer. In the dark, all bodies are the same, all breath the same small sound. The remedies of the day are put aside. The physicians sleep, the apothecaries sleep, the barbers sleep. Only the patients remain awake, keeping their own vigil, waiting for the light. In a small cottage on the edge of the village, a woman sits by the fire, her spinning wheel idle at her side. She is the one they call the wise woman, though she does not think of herself that way. She is old, older than anyone in the village can remember. She knows things. She knows which mushrooms are safe to eat and which will kill a man before he reaches the door. She knows where to find the rare orchis that grows only in the deep woods. She knows how to set a broken bone and how to deliver a baby when it comes wrong. She has no books, no Latin, no theories. She has only her memory, a storehouse of knowledge accumulated over a lifetime of watching and doing. A young man comes to her door in the middle of the night, his face twisted with pain. He has cut his hand with a scythe, a deep gash across the palm. The wound is already angry, red and swollen. The woman looks at it calmly. She cleans it with water she has boiled with yarrow. She applies a poultice of crushed plantain leaves, a common weed that grows everywhere. She binds the hand with a clean strip of linen. She gives him a cup of tea made from willow bark and tells him to rest. There is no drama in her actions, no sense of heroic intervention. This is simply what one does. The young man thanks her and leaves, his hand held carefully against his chest. The woman returns to her chair by the fire. She does not know if the wound will heal cleanly. She has done what she can. The rest is up to the body itself, and to forces she cannot name. The fire burns low. The woman closes her eyes. She does not sleep, but rests, her mind drifting through the long catalogue of remedies and observations she has collected. A deep cut, if it festers, can be treated with a bread poultice to draw out the poison. A fever that does not break can sometimes be cooled with cloths dipped in vinegar. A difficult childbirth can be eased with a tea made from raspberry leaf. She has seen these things work. She has also seen them fail. The body is not a machine, and illness is not a simple problem with a simple solution. The best you can do is pay attention, try what has worked before, and wait. The waiting is the hardest part. The waiting is where faith lives, or doubt, or simply the quiet acceptance of whatever comes. The first gray light of dawn begins to seep through the cracks in the shutters. The woman opens her eyes. Another day has begun. The world outside will stir soon, and the small, endless work of living will continue. The sick will need tending. The injured will need help. The babies will be born, and the old will die. The woman will do what she has always done. She will use her hands, her eyes, her memory. She will offer what comfort she can. And when the night comes again, she will sit by her fire once more, waiting, watching, and holding the knowledge of generations in the quiet space between wakefulness and sleep. The rain continues through the night and into the next day, a soft, persistent rhythm that blurs the edges of the world. In the great hall of the manor, the servants move through their morning tasks with the quiet efficiency of long practice. The rushes on the floor are swept aside and replaced with fresh ones, their green scent mingling with the smoke from the hearth. A young girl, no more than 12, carries an armload of wood to the fire, her arms straining against the weight. She sets the wood down carefully, piece by piece, feeding the flames until they crackle and rise. The warmth spreads slowly, pushing back the chill that has settled into the stones overnight. The lord of the manor did not sleep well. His headache has receded but left behind a dull heaviness, a sense of pressure behind his eyes that makes the morning light uncomfortable. He sits at the high table, a bowl of warm porridge before him, but he does not eat. His wife watches him from across the table, her expression unreadable. She has already sent word to the still room for a fresh supply of the lavender salve. It will be applied again after the morning meal. The routine of care continues, as steady and unchanging as the rain itself. In the village, the rain has turned the paths to mud. A man making his way to the field slips and falls, landing heavily on his side. He lies there for a moment, feeling the shock of the impact, the cold mud seeping through his clothes. Then he rises slowly, testing his limbs. His elbow is scraped, a shallow wound that weeps a thin line of blood. He wipes it with his sleeve and continues on his way. The wound is nothing, a small thing, not worth the trouble of seeking out the wise woman. It will heal on its own or it will not. There is no time to worry about such small injuries. The work of the fields does not pause for scrapes and bruises. By midday, the rain has stopped. The clouds break apart, revealing patches of pale blue sky. The sun, weak but present, casts long shadows across the wet ground. In the monastery, the monks file out of the chapel after the sex service and make their way to the refectory for the midday meal. They eat in silence, a reader standing at a lectern, reciting from a holy text in a low, monotonous voice. The food is plain, sufficient but not abundant. Bread, cheese, a thin soup of vegetables. The monks eat without pleasure, without complaint. Eating is a necessity, not an indulgence. After the meal, they will return to their labors. The scriptorium, the garden, the kitchen, the infirmary. Each monk has his assigned task, his place in the rhythm of the day. In the infirmary, a small room with a few beds, one of the monks tends to an elderly brother who has grown weak and confused. The old man lies in the bed, his eyes open but unseeing, his lips moving in a silent, endless prayer. The younger monk sits beside him, holding his hand. There is nothing to be done. The old man's body is failing, his mind retreating to some distant place. The younger monk does not try to rouse him, does not offer any remedy. He simply sits, a quiet presence in the room, offering the only comfort he can, which is the comfort of not being alone. The hours pass slowly. The light through the small window shifts and fades. The old man's breathing grows shallower, quieter, until it stops altogether, so gently that the younger monk does not notice at first. He sits for a long time, still holding the hand that has grown cold, before he finally rises to inform the abbot. The death is expected, peaceful, a release from the suffering of the failing body. There will be prayers, a simple burial in the monastery graveyard. The rhythm of the community will absorb this loss and continue, unbroken. Beyond the monastery walls, in the wider world, the news of a death travels slowly. A rider on the road, a merchant with his pack mules, a pilgrim making his way to a distant shrine. They carry stories as well as goods, fragments of information passed from town to town, from village to village. A plague has broken out in a city to the south. A fever is sweeping through a region to the east. A child was born with 2 heads, a sign of God's displeasure. The stories are unreliable, distorted by distance and fear, but they shape the way people understand the world. Illness is not random. It is a message, a punishment, a test. The body is a battlefield where larger forces contend. In a small market town, a peddler sets up his stall in the square. He sells small goods, needles and ribbons, knives and combs. But he also sells remedies. Small paper packets of dried herbs, tiny vials of colored liquid, fragments of bone said to belong to a saint. He does not claim to be a physician or an apothecary. He is simply a seller of things. People come to him because he is here, because the physician is far away and the apothecary is expensive. A woman buys a packet of dried feverfew for her daughter's headaches. A man buys a small bone, hoping it will cure his cow of a mysterious ailment. A young couple, newly married, buys a love charm, a mixture of honey and ground pearls, to ensure a fertile union. The peddler takes their coins and hands over the goods, his expression neutral. He does not believe in the remedies he sells, but he believes in the hope they represent. Hope is a kind of currency as valuable as silver. As evening approaches, the peddler packs up his stall and leads his mule to the local inn. The inn is a low building, crowded and noisy. Travelers and locals sit together at long tables, drinking ale and eating a rough stew. The peddler finds a place in the corner, away from the fire. He eats his meal in silence, listening to the conversations around him. A farmer complains about the price of wool. A tinker argues with a cooper about the quality of his work. A group of pilgrims, their cloaks still damp from the rain, discuss the shrine they are traveling to, the miracles they hope to witness. The peddler finishes his meal and climbs the narrow stairs to the room he shares with 3 other men. He lies down on the straw mattress, pulls his cloak over himself, and closes his eyes. The sounds of the inn continue below, muffled but persistent. He listens to them as he drifts towards sleep, the voices blending into a single, distant murmur. In a chamber above the inn, a different kind of sleep takes hold. A merchant, traveling alone, lies in his bed, his body rigid with pain. He has eaten something that disagreed with him, or perhaps the water was bad. His stomach cramps and churns. He sweats and shivers by turns. He has no remedies with him, no knowledge of what to do. He lies in the dark, waiting for the pain to pass, or for death to take him. The night stretches out, endless and terrible. He thinks of his wife, his children, his home. He thinks of all the things he will never do if he dies here, in this strange room, in this unfamiliar town. He prays, bargaining with God, promising to be a better man if only he is allowed to live. The prayer is desperate, formless, a cry into the darkness. There is no answer, only the pain and the waiting. Morning comes, and the merchant is still alive. The pain has eased, leaving him weak and empty. He lies still for a long time, feeling the return of ordinary sensation, the light through the window, the sound of birds outside. He rises slowly, carefully, and drinks water from a ewer on the stand. The water is cool and clean. He drinks deeply, feeling it spread through his body, a simple, profound relief. He will live. He will continue his journey. The night's terror will become a story he tells, a reminder of his own mortality. But for now, there is only the morning, the water, the slow return of strength. He dresses and goes downstairs, ready to face the day. The peddler is already in the common room, breaking his fast with bread and ale. He nods to the merchant as he passes, a small, impersonal acknowledgement. The merchant nods back. They are strangers, sharing a moment of ordinary morning. Unaware of the night the merchant has just endured. The peddler finishes his meal and goes out to the stable to prepare his mule. The merchant orders his own breakfast and sits by the window, watching the town come to life. The market square fills with people. Stalls are set up, goods displayed, coins exchanged. The merchant watches it all with a kind of detachment, grateful simply to be present, to be part of the ordinary flow of the day. By mid-morning, the merchant has resumed his journey, his horse carrying him along the muddy road toward the next town. The landscape rolls past, fields and woods and scattered farms. He passes a group of laborers repairing a section of the road, their movements slow and rhythmic. He passes a woman gathering herbs in a ditch, her basket already half full. He passes a child tending a few scrawny goats, his attention fixed on a distant point in the sky. The world is full of small, unnoticed lives, each one following its own path, each one subject to the same vulnerabilities of the body. The merchant thinks about this as he rides, the vast, interconnected web of human existence, the countless small struggles against illness and injury that play out every day, everywhere, unseen and unrecorded. It is a humbling thought, but also a comforting one. He is not alone in his fragility. He is part of something larger, a current of life that flows on, indifferent to individual suffering, but also sustained by it, shaped by it. In a village far from the merchant's road, a woman goes into labor. The wise woman is summoned. She comes with her bag of herbs and her calm, unhurried presence. The labor is long and difficult. The woman cries out, her body racked with pain. The wise woman speaks to her in a low, steady voice, telling her to breathe, to push, to rest when she can. Hours pass. The candles are lit. The night falls. Still the labor continues. The husband waits outside, pacing, praying, his face drawn with fear. Inside, the wise woman does what she has always done. She monitors the position of the child. She applies compresses of warm herbs to ease the mother's pain. She offers sips of water and words of encouragement. She is tired, but she does not show it. Her focus is absolute, her attention fixed on the two lives in her care. Just before dawn, the child is born. A boy, small and red and screaming. The wise woman lifts him, cleans him, places him in his mother's arms. The mother's face, exhausted and tear-streaked, breaks into a smile. She holds the child against her chest, feeling the warmth of his small body, the flutter of his breath. The wise woman sits back, allowing herself a moment of rest. The work is done. Another life has entered the world. Another small victory has been won against the darkness. She will stay until she is sure the mother is well, and then she will walk home through the morning light and she will sleep. Tomorrow there will be other work, other bodies in need of her attention. But for now, there is only this, the quiet aftermath of birth, the soft sounds of mother and child in the gray dawn. The wise woman walks home as the village stirs to life. The baker's oven is already hot, the smell of bread spreading through the streets. A rooster crows, a sharp, insistent sound. Dogs bark in the distance. The wise woman walks slowly, her body heavy with fatigue. She passes the church, where the priest is opening the doors for the morning mass. He nods to her and she nods back. They are two pillars of the community, the spiritual and the physical, each with their own domain, their own kind of knowledge. The priest tends to the soul. The wise woman tends to the body. Sometimes their paths cross, when a patient needs both prayer and a poultice. But mostly they work in parallel, two separate currents flowing through the same village. At her cottage, the wise woman builds up the fire and heats water for tea. She sits in her chair, the same chair where she sat 2 nights before, and she drinks her tea slowly, letting the warmth spread through her. The fire crackles. The room is quiet. She thinks about the birth, the moment when the child emerged, the look on the mother's face. It is always the same and always different. The same relief, the same joy, the same exhaustion. She has attended hundreds of births, and each one is a mystery, a small miracle of survival. She does not understand why some births are easy and some are difficult, why some children live and some die. She only knows that she must be present, must do what she can, must accept whatever comes. This is the wisdom of her years, the hard-won knowledge that control is an illusion. The body does what it will. The best you can do is accompany it on its journey, offering what comfort you can, bearing witness to its struggles and its triumphs. The day passes slowly. The wise woman rests, naps, eats a little bread and cheese. In the afternoon, a young mother comes to her door, her baby fussing and feverish. The wise woman examines the child, feels its forehead, looks at its throat. She prepares a weak tea of chamomile and tells the mother to feed it to the baby in small sips. She shows the mother how to cool the child with a damp cloth, how to keep it comfortable. The mother listens carefully, her face anxious. The wise woman reassures her, tells her to come back if the fever does not break by morning. The mother leaves, clutching her baby, her steps quick and purposeful. The wise woman watches her go, then returns to her chair. The work is endless, but it is also meaningful. Each small act of care is a thread in the fabric of the community, holding it together against the forces of chaos and decay. As evening falls, the wise woman prepares her own simple meal. She eats alone as she always does. She is used to solitude. It is the price of her knowledge, the distance that sets her apart from the ordinary life of the village. The women her age have grandchildren, daughters to talk to, a place in the warm circle of family. The wise woman has only her work, her memories, her chair by the fire. She does not feel sorry for herself. This is the path she chose or the path that chose her. It does not matter which. What matters is that she is here, that she is needed, that she can still do the work. When she can no longer do the work, she will die. It is as simple as that. The fire burns low. The wise woman closes her eyes. She does not sleep, but rests, her mind drifting through the long catalogue of faces she has tended, the hands she has held, the lives she has witnessed entering and leaving the world. The faces blur together, a river of human experience flowing through the small room, through the quiet of the night. She is part of that river, a small eddy in its current. She will be here tomorrow and the next day and the next until she is not. And the river will flow on, carrying others with it, carrying the same work, the same small acts of care, the same quiet endurance. This is the truth of the body, the truth of the world. It does not change. It only continues. The afternoon light softens, taking on the golden quality that precedes evening. In the still room of the manor, the servant works methodically, her hands moving among the jars and bundles with the ease of long familiarity. She is grinding dried rosemary in a stone mortar, the fragrance releasing in waves with each rotation of the pestle. The herb will be mixed with beeswax and tallow to make an ointment for aching joints, a remedy requested by the cook, whose hands trouble her more each winter. The work is repetitive, soothing. The sound of the pestle against the mortar is a small, steady rhythm in the quiet room. Outside the still room window, the kitchen garden lies in orderly rows. The last of the autumn crops have been harvested, and the earth is being turned over, left to rest through the coming cold. A boy walks between the rows, pulling up the remains of spent plants and adding them to a wheelbarrow. His movements are slow, unhurried. There is no urgency in this work, only the patient preparation for the next season. The boy will be here all afternoon, and tomorrow he will begin again in a different part of the garden. The work of the land is never finished. It simply moves from one task to the next. In the village, the blacksmith's forge glows orange against the gathering dusk. The blacksmith himself is a large man, his arms thick with muscle, his face permanently flushed from the heat of his work. He is making a shoe for a horse, the metal glowing and bending under his hammer. The rhythm of his strikes is steady, predictable, each blow falling in the same place with the same force. He has done this thousands of times. He will do it thousands more. The horse stands patiently nearby, its owner holding its halter, watching the work with the quiet attention of a man who understands that his livelihood depends on the health of his animals. A woman approaches the forge, a bundle in her arms. She waits at the edge of the light, not wanting to interrupt, but the blacksmith sees her and pauses, setting down his hammer. She steps forward and unwraps the bundle, revealing a broken plow blade. The blacksmith examines it, turning it over in his hands. The break is clean, he says. He can fix it. She should return tomorrow. The woman nods, wraps the blade again, and disappears into the gathering darkness. The blacksmith returns to his work, the hammer rising and falling once more. The rhythm resonates, as if it had never stopped. The night deepens. In a small house on the edge of the village, a family sits down to their evening meal. The father, a weaver, has spent the day at his loom, the steady clack of the shuttle marking the hours. The mother has been spinning, her wheel turning beside the fire as she watched the younger children. The oldest daughter has been gathering eggs and feeding the chickens. The meal is simple, a pottage of beans and barley, with a small piece of salted pork for flavor. They eat in silence, too tired for conversation. The fire crackles. The wind whispers at the shutters. The children's eyelids grow heavy. Soon they will sleep, and the parents will sit by the fire for a while longer, not speaking, simply being together in the quiet before the night claims them as well. In the monastery, the monks have gathered for the final service of the day, Compline. The chapel is dark except for a few candles, their flames small and steady in the still air. The monks chant in Latin, their voices rising and falling in the ancient melodies. The sound fills the space, reverberating off the stone walls, then fades into silence. The service ends. The monks file out, their sandals whispering against the floor. They go to their cells, small, bare rooms with a bed, a desk, a crucifix. They will sleep, and they will rise again in the middle of the night for the first service of the new day, vigils. The rhythm of prayer never stops. It continues through the darkness, through the hours when the rest of the world sleeps, a small, persistent voice calling out to a God who may or may not be listening. In his cell, the monk from the scriptorium lies on his bed, his eyes open in the darkness. He is thinking about the manuscript he is copying, the medical text with its diagrams and recipes. He is thinking about the words he wrote today, a description of a fever and its treatment. The words are old, copied from a manuscript that was itself copied from an older manuscript, a chain of transmission reaching back centuries. He wonders, for a moment, if the remedies actually work. He has never tried them. He has never had occasion to try them. He is young, healthy, protected by the walls of the monastery from many of the dangers that afflict the world outside. But the question lingers, a small, unsettling thought in the darkness. He pushes it away. It is not his place to question. His place is to copy, to preserve, to pass on what he has received. The thought fades, replaced by the familiar rhythm of the prayers he will recite when the bell rings. He sleeps. The night passes. The bell rings, pulling the monks from their beds. They gather again in the chapel, their voices rough with sleep, chanting the ancient words. Outside, the world is still dark, the stars bright in a cloudless sky. The service ends, and the monks return to their cells for a few more hours of sleep before the dawn. In the village, the roosters begin to crow, their calls echoing from one end of the settlement to the other. The first light appears in the east, a pale grayness that slowly spreads across the sky. The wise woman wakes before the sun, as she always does. She builds up the fire, heats water for tea, and sits in her chair to watch the light grow. Her body is stiff this morning, the joints of her hands aching with the cold. She rubs them with a little of the rosemary ointment she keeps for herself, the same ointment she makes for others. The warmth and the fragrance help, a little. She drinks her tea and waits for the day to begin. A knock comes at her door. It is the young mother from yesterday, the one with the feverish baby. The child is better, she says. The fever broke in the night, and the baby is sleeping peacefully. She has brought a small gift, a loaf of fresh bread, still warm from the oven. The wise woman takes it, thanks her, and watches her go. It is a small thing, the bread, but it is also a recognition, a sign that her work is valued. She eats a piece of the bread with her tea, savoring its warmth and softness. It is good bread. The mother is a good baker. The wise woman makes a mental note to remember this, to call on the mother when she needs bread in the future. These small exchanges are the currency of the village, the bonds that hold it together. The morning passes in small tasks. A man comes with a deep cut on his leg, the result of an accident with an axe. The wise woman cleans the wound, applies a poultice of yarrow and comfrey, and binds it with clean linen. She tells him to keep it dry, to come back in 2 days. He nods, thanks her, and leaves. A woman comes with a cough that has troubled her for weeks. The wise woman gives her a syrup made from horehound and honey, tells her to take a spoonful each night before bed. The woman pays with a few eggs, still warm from the nest. The wise woman accepts them, adds them to the basket in her kitchen. The work continues, the small, endless work of tending to the bodies of the village. By midday, the sun is high and the air has warmed a little. The wise woman sits outside her cottage, shelling peas into a bowl. The work is simple, meditative. Her fingers move automatically, splitting the pods, releasing the peas, letting the empty pods fall into a separate pile. She will feed the pods to her chickens. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is thrown away. This is the way of the village, the way of survival. Everything has a use, everything has a purpose. The peas will be cooked with a little salt and eaten with bread. The chickens will eat the pods and lay eggs. The eggs will be traded for other things. The cycle continues, turning endlessly, sustaining life through the patient repetition of small tasks. In the afternoon, a stranger comes to the village. He is a traveler, a pilgrim on his way to a distant shrine. He is tired, hungry, his clothes worn and dusty. The villagers eye him with suspicion, but they do not turn him away. Hospitality is a duty, a sacred obligation. He is given food and a place to sleep in the barn. He sits by the fire in the common room of the inn, eating his meal slowly, savoring each bite. The villagers ask him questions. Where has he come from? What news does he bring? He tells them of the places he has seen, the cities and towns, the roads and fields. He tells them of a sickness that has broken out in a town to the south, a fever that has killed many. The villagers listen in silence, their faces troubled. The sickness is far away, but sickness travels. It follows the roads, the pilgrims, the merchants. Could come here, could come anywhere. The traveler finishes his meal and goes to the barn to sleep. The villagers sit by the fire, talking quietly among themselves. They speak of the sickness, of what they have heard, of what they fear. They speak of remedies, of prayers, of the wise woman and her herbs. They speak of the priest and his blessings. They speak of the old stories, the tales of plagues that swept through the land in their grandparents' time, leaving empty houses and untilled fields. The fear is there, beneath the surface of their words, but it does not overwhelm them. They have lived with fear all their lives. Fear of hunger, fear of injury, fear of the dark. This is just one more fear, one more thing to be endured. They will do what they have always done. They will tend their gardens, care for their animals, watch their children. They will go to church and pray. They will visit the wise woman when they are sick. They will endure. The night falls. The villagers go to their homes, their beds. The traveler sleeps in the barn, his body curled against the cold. The wise woman sits by her fire, her hands still, her eyes closed. She is thinking about the sickness the traveler described. She has heard of such things before. Fevers that spread from person to person, that kill the strong as easily as the weak. She has no remedy for such a thing. Her herbs can ease symptoms, can comfort the suffering, but they cannot stop a fever that travels. She knows this, though she does not speak of it. Her role is not to cure, but to care, to be present, to do what can be done. It is a small role, but it is the only role there is. The fire burns low. The wise woman opens her eyes and looks into the embers. She sees the shapes shifting, the red glow fading to ash. She thinks about the cycle of things. The fire burns and then it dies. The body lives and then it dies. The village continues generation after generation, and then one day it might not. A sickness could come and take everyone. The houses would fall into ruin. The fields would return to weeds. The forest would reclaim the land. And then, in time, someone else might come, a traveler, a pilgrim, and they would see the ruins and wonder who lived here, what happened to them. And they would move on, and the forest would continue to grow, and the cycle would continue, indifferent to the small lives that had been lived and lost. She rises from her chair and goes to her bed. She lies down, pulls the blanket over herself, and closes her eyes. She sleeps, and in her sleep she dreams of nothing. She is too tired for dreams. Her body rests, preparing for the work of another day. Outside, the wind rises, rustling the thatch of the roof, stirring the leaves in the forest. The night is dark and cold, and the village sleeps, small and fragile in the vastness of the world. The morning brings a hard frost, the first of the season. The wise woman wakes to find the world transformed, each blade of grass outlined in white, each fallen leaf crisp and brittle underfoot. She wraps herself in her heaviest shawl and goes out to the well, her breath forming small clouds in the still air. The rope is stiff with cold, the bucket heavy as she draws it up. She carries the water back to her cottage, sets it by the fire to warm, and begins her day. In the village, the frost has penetrated every crack and crevice. The thatched roofs are white, the paths treacherous with ice. People move carefully, their steps short and deliberate. An old man falls outside his door, his legs giving way beneath him. His daughter rushes out, helps him up, guides him inside. He is shaken but unhurt, his pride more damaged than his body. He will stay by the fire today, wrapped in blankets, drinking warm ale. The cold is hardest on the old. It seeps into their bones, stiffens their joints, steals their warmth. Many will not survive the winter. This is understood, accepted. The old know it. The young know it. It is the way of things. In the manor, the lord's wife supervises the distribution of winter clothing to the servants. Thick woolen cloaks, lined gloves, sturdy boots. Each servant receives their allotment, their thanks murmured quietly. The lord's wife notes each distribution in a small book, keeping careful account. The winter will be long, and resources must be managed. She will order more firewood from the forester, more salted meat from the smokehouse. The preparations are endless, but necessary. The manor must survive until spring. The Lord himself sits in his solar, a document spread before him. It is a letter from a neighboring estate, inquiring about a marriage alliance between their families. The Lord reads it slowly, considering the implications. A marriage would unite their lands, their resources, their influence. It would also mean a dowry to be negotiated, a contract to be drawn, a future to be arranged. He sets the letter aside. There is time. These things move slowly as the seasons themselves. In the kitchen, the cook directs the preparation of the midday meal. A large pot of stew bubbles over the fire, filled with root vegetables, dried beans, and chunks of salted beef. A second pot holds a porridge of barley and milk, sweetened with a little honey. The servants will eat well today, fortified against the cold. The cook tastes the stew, adds a pinch of salt, nods her satisfaction. She has been here for 30 years, through winters mild and harsh, through good harvests and bad. She knows how to feed a household, how to stretch supplies, how to make do with what is available. Her knowledge is practical, unspoken, passed down through years of doing. The afternoon brings more frost, the sun too weak to melt it. In the village, Children play in the frozen ruts of the road, sliding on the ice, their laughter sharp in the cold air. An old woman watches them from her doorway, a small smile on her face. She remembers doing the same thing 70 years ago in this same village. The road was dirt then, too, the houses the same, the frost just as cold. Nothing has changed. Nothing ever changes. The children grow up, have their own children, grow old and die. And new children take their place, sliding on the ice, laughing in the cold. The old woman turns and goes back inside, closing the door against the chill. In the monastery, the monks work in the garden, covering the remaining plants with straw to protect them from the frost. The work is cold, their fingers numb despite their gloves. They move methodically, spreading the straw in thick layers, weighing it down with stones. The garden must be protected. It provides the herbs for the infirmary, the vegetables for the table, the simple flowers for the chapel altar. The monks do not complain. Complaining is a sin, a failure of acceptance. They work in silence, offering their labor to God. In the scriptorium, the copying monk continues his work. The manuscript before him describes the treatment of wounds, the proper way to clean and bind them, the herbs to apply for different types of injury. He copies the words carefully, his hands steady despite the cold that seeps through the walls. The scriptorium is never truly warm, even with a small brazier burning in the corner. The monk wears gloves with the fingers cut away, allowing him to hold the quill while keeping the rest of his hands covered. It is a small adaptation, learned over years of winter copying. He does not think about it. He simply does it. The text describes a wound that will not heal, a deep gash that has become infected. The prescribed treatment is a poultice of honey and turmeric, bound with clean linen and changed twice daily. The monk copies the words, adding the necessary illustrations in the margin, small diagrams showing the placement of the poultice. He wonders, briefly, if honey and turmeric would have helped the man who came to the wise woman with the axe wound. He does not know. He has no way of knowing. The knowledge in the manuscript is old, authoritative. It must be true. He continues copying. Evening falls, the darkness arriving earlier now, the days growing shorter. In the village, families gather around their fires, the warmth a small comfort against the growing cold. Stories are told, old tales repeated for the 100th time. The story of the winter when the snow lasted until May, when the wolves came into the village, when the old people died in their beds. The children listen, half afraid, half thrilled. They have heard these stories before, but they listen anyway, the repetition itself a comfort. Some things do not change. The stories do not change. The winter does not change. The fear does not change. In a small house near the edge of the village, a young woman sits by the fire, her hands folded in her lap. She is pregnant, her belly round beneath her dress. The baby moves inside her, a small shifting weight. She is afraid. Her mother died in childbirth years ago, and the fear has never left her. She has spoken of this to the wise woman, who listened and said little. The wise woman will be there when the time comes. She will do what she can. But the fear remains, a cold weight in her chest, heavier than the baby. Her husband sits across the fire, whittling a piece of wood into a toy for the child. He does not speak of his own fear. He works the wood, shaping it slowly, his hands steady. They sit in silence, together in their separate fears, the fire crackling between them. The night deepens. In the manor, the lord and his wife retire to their chamber. The bed is large, piled with furs and blankets. They lie together in the warmth, not speaking, not touching. The lord thinks about the letter, the marriage alliance, the future of his family. The lady thinks about the winter supplies, the servants, the preparations still to be made. They are together but separate, each in their own thoughts. The fire in the hearth burns low, casting long shadows on the walls. They sleep. In the monastery, the monk lies in his cell, unable to sleep. The cold seeps through his blanket, through his woolen robe into his bones. He shivers, curls tighter, tries to think of something else. He thinks of the manuscript, the words he copied today. He thinks of the wound that would not heal, the poultice of honey and turmeric. He thinks of the body, so fragile, so easily broken. He thinks of his own body, growing old, growing weak. He will die one day, here in this cell, or in the infirmary, surrounded by his brothers. It is not a frightening thought. It is simply a fact, as certain as the frost, as certain as the winter. He closes his eyes and waits for sleep. The bell rings for vigils. He rises, his body stiff with cold, and makes his way to the chapel. The other monks gather, their faces pale in the candlelight. They chant the ancient words, their voices rough with sleep. The sound fills the chapel, rises to the vaulted ceiling, fades into the darkness. The service ends. They return to their cells. The monk sleeps at last, his dreams formless and quiet. Dawn comes slowly, the light hesitant behind a veil of clouds. The frost is thicker today, the world muffled and white. In the village, the wise woman wakes and builds her fire. She heats water for tea, eats a piece of the bread the young mother brought, and prepares for the day. The cold is deeper now. She will need more firewood. She will send word to the woodcutter, ask him to bring a load. She will pay him with eggs, with ointment, with whatever she has. This is how it works. This is how it has always worked. A knock at her door. It is the woodcutter himself, a load of wood already stacked outside. He saw the smoke from her chimney, knew she would need more. She thanks him, offers payment. He refuses, waving it away. She has helped his family many times. This is repayment. He leaves, and she stands in the doorway watching him go. The wood is good, dry and seasoned. It will burn well. She carries it inside, piece by piece, stacking it by the hearth. The work warms her, loosens her stiff joints. She adds wood to the fire, watches it catch, feels the warmth spread through the room. The day passes in the usual tasks. A child with a cough, an old man with aching joints, a young woman with questions about her pregnancy. The wise woman tends to them all, her hands steady, her voice calm. She gives them what she has, herbs and words and the simple comfort of her presence. They leave and others come. The work is endless, but she does not mind. It gives shape to her days, meaning to her life. Without the work, she would be alone with her thoughts, alone with the silence. The work keeps her company. In the afternoon, the sky darkens and snow begins to fall. At first it is light, a few flakes drifting lazily down. Then it thickens, the flakes growing larger, falling faster. Within an hour, the ground is covered, the paths disappearing, the village becoming soft and white. The wise woman watches from her window, the snow piling against the glass. She has seen many snows. Some have been gentle, melting within days. Others have been fierce, burying the village, cutting it off from the world for weeks. She does not know what this snow will bring. She only knows that she is prepared as she can be. She has wood, food, water. She has her herbs, her knowledge, her hands. She will endure. The snow continues through the evening, through the night. The village disappears beneath it, houses becoming mounds, roads becoming indistinguishable from fields. The silence is profound, the snow muffling every sound. No one ventures out. The fires burn. The families huddle together. The world outside becomes a blank white page. The wise woman sits by her fire, listening to the silence. She thinks about the traveler, the sickness he described. It is far away, separated by distance, by the snow, by the impossibility of travel. Cannot reach her here, not now. The snow has sealed the village, protected it. For a while at least. When the snow melts, the roads will open again. The travelers will come again. The sickness might come again. But that is later. That is another day. Tonight, there is only the snow, the fire, the quiet. She adds wood to the fire, watches the flames dance. She thinks about the baby that will be born, the young woman who is afraid. She thinks about the old man who fell on the ice, the child with the cough. She thinks about all the bodies she has tended, all the lives she has touched. They are a chain, stretching back through the years, connecting her to the village, to the world. She is alone in her cottage, but she is not alone. She carries them with her, all of them, the living and the dead. They sit with her by the fire, in the silence, in the snow. She closes her eyes. She does not sleep. She rests, her mind drifting, her body warm. The snow continues to fall outside, piling higher, deeper. The world is white, silent, still. The fire crackles. The wise woman breathes, slow and steady. The night is long, but she is patient. She has always been patient. The night will pass and the morning will come, and the work will begin again. But for now, there is only this: the fire, the silence, the snow. The snow does not stop for 3 days. On the morning of the 4th day, the sky clears and the sun rises over a world transformed. The village is buried, only the tops of the doors visible, the roofs sagging under the weight. Paths must be dug, tunnels carved through the white. The men take turns with wooden shovels, their breath forming clouds, their movements slow and deliberate. The women stay inside, tending fires, rationing food, keeping children occupied with small tasks and old stories. The village has become a collection of isolated islands, each house cut off from the others, connected only by the labor of digging. The wise woman's cottage is buried like the rest. She has enough wood for another week, enough food for perhaps 2. She is not worried. The snow will melt eventually, or the men will dig a path to her door. She sits by her fire, her hands occupied with mending. A tear in her best shawl, a loose thread on her apron. The work is small, insignificant, but it gives her hands something to do. Her mind wanders, drifting through memories, through possibilities, through the quiet spaces between thoughts. A thumping at her door, muffled by the snow. She rises, goes to the door, pushes against it. The snow has piled high, but someone is digging from the other side. She hears the scrape of a shovel, the sound of heavy breathing. After a long moment, the door can be pushed outward, and a man's face appears in the opening, red with exertion. It is the woodcutter come to check on her. He has dug a path from his own house, working his way through the village, checking on the old and the alone. She thanks him, offers him warm ale. He drinks it quickly, then continues on his way. The path to her door is open now, a narrow trench between walls of white. She can see other paths in the distance, a network being carved through the snow. In the afternoon, she wraps herself in her shawl and ventures out. The path is narrow, the snow walls higher than her head. She walks slowly, carefully, her feet finding purchase on the packed snow. She comes to the house of the pregnant woman, knocks on the door. The woman opens it, her face pale, her eyes tired. The baby has not come yet. She is uncomfortable, unable to sleep, her body heavy and restless. The wise woman sits with her for a while, talking quietly, checking her pulse, feeling the position of the baby through the layers of clothing. Everything is as it should be. The baby will come when it is ready. The wise woman tells her this, repeats it, lets the words settle. The woman nods, relieved to have been visited, to know that someone is thinking of her. The wise woman continues through the village, visiting the old man who fell on the ice, the child with the cough, a few others who might need looking after. Each visit is brief, but each one matters. The villagers are isolated, cut off from their usual routines, their usual connections. A visit from the wise woman is a reminder that they are not forgotten, that the web of the village still holds, even under the weight of the snow. The days pass slowly. The snow begins to settle, to shrink, to melt in the weak afternoon sun. The paths widen, become easier to navigate. The village gradually emerges from its white cocoon, roofs appearing, doors becoming fully visible. The work of daily life resumes, adapted to the conditions. Animals must be fed, water must be carried, fires must be fed. The routines continue, patient and persistent. In the manor, the Lord surveys his lands from an upper window. The snow has damaged some of the outbuildings, collapsed a section of the barn roof. He will need to send men to repair it, to shore it up before the next snow. The cost of winter is always high, always expected. He makes a mental list, calculates the resources required. The manor will manage. It always does. His wife oversees the distribution of extra blankets, extra food to the servants. The cold has seeped into every corner of the great house, and the servants sleep in the kitchen now, close to the warmth of the hearth. The lady does not object. She understands necessity. She has learned, over the years, that the boundaries between servants and masters soften in the face of cold, in the face of shared survival. It is a temporary softening, a practical accommodation. When spring comes, the old distances will return. In the monastery, the monks have adapted to the snow as well. The path to the chapel must be cleared for each service, a task that falls to the youngest brothers. They do it without complaint, their shovels moving in the darkness before dawn. The only sounds the scrape of metal and their own quiet breathing. The snow has cut them off from the village, from the world, but this is not unwelcome. The isolation deepens their focus, sharpens their prayers. They are alone with God, as they should be. The copying monk continues his work, though the light in the scriptorium is dimmer now, the days shorter. He works by the small window, moving his desk as the light shifts, following the sun across the sky. The manuscript he is copying has reached a section on the treatment of fevers, a long and detailed description of the different types and their remedies. He copies it all, the words flowing from his pen onto the parchment, the chain of transmission continuing unbroken. He does not think about the fevers that might be spreading in the world outside, the sickness the traveler described. He thinks only of the words, the letters, the careful formation of each character. This is his work. This is his prayer. One evening, as he prepares to leave the scriptorium, he notices a small error in the page he has just completed. A single letter, misplaced, a word slightly misspelled. He hesitates. The error is small, perhaps unnoticeable to anyone who might read it. But he knows it is there. He knows that the manuscript he is copying is intended to be perfect, a faithful reproduction of the original. The error troubles him. He considers leaving it, moving on. But he cannot. He takes up his knife, carefully scrapes away the error, and writes the correct letter in its place. The parchment is slightly thinner there now, slightly damaged. But the error is gone. He looks at the page, satisfied. The chain of transmission is intact. The knowledge is preserved. The winter deepens. The snow comes and goes, melts and returns. The days are short, the nights long. The village settles into the rhythm of cold, the rhythm of waiting. The pregnant woman's belly grows larger, her discomfort more acute. She moves slowly, heavily, her hands always on her belly, feeling the baby's movements. The wise woman visits her every few days, sits with her, talks with her, reassures her. The fear is still there, beneath the surface, but it is manageable now. The wise woman's presence helps. The routine helps. The waiting itself helps. The gradual accumulation of days, each one bringing her closer. In the manor, the Lord receives word that the neighboring estate has agreed to the marriage alliance. The contract will be drawn up in the spring, the wedding planned for the following year. The Lord is satisfied. His family's future is more secure, his lands more connected, his influence expanded. He writes a letter of acceptance, seals it with his ring, and sends it with a messenger. The messenger rides out into the cold, his horse picking its way carefully along the icy roads. He will reach the neighboring estate in 2 days, if the weather holds. In the village, the woodcutter's wife falls ill. A fever, a cough, a weakness that keeps her in bed. The woodcutter comes for the wise woman, his face drawn with worry. She goes with him, through the cold, to his house. The woman lies in bed, her face flushed, her breath labored. The wise woman examines her, asks questions, prepares a tea of yarrow and elderflower. She tells the woodcutter to keep her warm, to give her the tea every few hours, to send for her if she worsens. She sits with the woman for a while, holding her hand, speaking quietly. The woman's eyes are glassy with fever, but she nods, understanding. The wise woman leaves, promising to return tomorrow. The fever runs its course. For 3 days, the woodcutter's wife burns and sweats and shivers. The woodcutter sits by her bed, feeding her the tea, changing the cloths on her forehead, praying to saints he has not thought of in years. On the 4th day, the fever breaks. She wakes, weak but clear-eyed, asking for water. The woodcutter cries, the relief overwhelming him. He goes to the wise woman, tells her the news, thanks her over and over. She accepts his thanks quietly, tells him to let his wife rest, to feed her small meals, to give her time. The crisis has passed. The body has done its work. The winter continues. The days grow no longer, but the cold does not intensify. It settles into a steady presence, a fact of life, as familiar as the air. The villagers move through it, their bodies adapted, their routines established. They carry firewood, they tend animals, they prepare food. They visit each other, share meals, share stories. The isolation of the first snow has passed. The paths are clear now, the connections restored. The village is itself again, a small world within the larger world, holding together against the cold. The wise woman sits by her fire, her hands idle for once. The day's work is done. The woodcutter's wife is recovering. The pregnant woman is resting. The child with the cough is better. There is no one else to tend, no immediate need. She allows herself this moment of stillness, this rare gift of nothing to do. The fire crackles. The wind whispers at the shutters. She closes her eyes and listens to the sounds of the night, the small sounds that are usually drowned out by the demands of the day. The creak of the house settling, the faint rustle of a mouse in the walls, the distant bark of a fox. The world continues around her, indifferent to her presence, but she is part of it, a small part, a listening part. She thinks about the traveler, the sickness he described. It is far away still, separated by distance, by winter, by the slow movement of news. It may never come here. It may come with the spring, with the thaw, with the reopening of the roads. She does not know. No one knows. The future is as hidden as the ground beneath the snow. All anyone can do is prepare, as much as possible, and wait. The wise woman has prepared. She has dried herbs, clean linens, steady hands. She has her knowledge, her experience, her patience. It is enough. It will have to be enough. She opens her eyes, adds another log to the fire. The flames catch, the warmth deepens. She will sleep soon in her chair by the hearth, as she often does. The bed is too far, too cold, too separate from the fire that keeps her alive. She sleeps here, within reach of the warmth, within sound of the crackling. It is enough. It has always been enough. The night deepens. The fire burns low. The wise woman sleeps, her breathing slow and steady, her hands folded in her lap. Outside, the wind rises, rattling the shutters, stirring the snow. The village sleeps, each house a small island of warmth in the vast cold. The monastery sleeps, the monks in their cells, the chapel dark and silent. The manor sleeps, the lord and his wife in their great bed, the servants in the kitchen, the animals in the barn. The world sleeps, wrapped in winter, waiting for the spring. And in the darkness, in the quiet, the waiting continues. The bodies rest, gathering strength for the days to come. The illnesses wait, patient as the cold, for their moment. The remedies wait, in jars and bundles, in memory and tradition, for the hands that will use them. The cycle continues, turning slowly, inevitably, through the long night of winter, toward a dawn that is still far away, still hidden, still unknown. The winter settles into a long, unchanging presence. The days blur together, each one much like the last. The same cold light through the windows, the same tasks repeated, the same quiet conversations by the fire. The village has become a place outside of time, suspended in the white stillness, waiting for a change that seems as distant as the spring. The wise woman's routine has not varied for weeks. She wakes before dawn, builds the fire, heats water for tea. She eats a small breakfast, whatever she has. She tends to whoever comes to her door. In the afternoons, she visits those who cannot come to her, the old, the infirm, the pregnant. She walks the paths of the village slowly, her steps careful on the packed snow. She has worn a groove in the path to the woodcutter's house, to the pregnant woman's house, to the houses of the others who need her. The groove is a small thing, a mark of her presence, her persistence. The pregnant woman is near her time now. Her body is heavy, her movements slow and deliberate. She cannot sleep, cannot get comfortable, cannot find a position that eases the weight. The wise woman sits with her for hours, talking quietly, rubbing her back, reminding her to breathe. The fear is still there, but it has changed. It is no longer a sharp, present terror. It has become a dull background hum, a constant companion, as familiar as the ache in her back. She has made peace with it, in a way. She has accepted that she cannot control what will happen. She can only wait and breathe and trust the wise woman. The woodcutter's wife has recovered fully. She moves through her days with renewed energy, grateful for her health, grateful for the simple fact of being alive. She brings the wise woman small gifts, a loaf of bread, a piece of cheese, a jar of honey. The wise woman accepts them, thanks her, adds them to her stores. The gifts are not payment. They are acknowledgement, recognition, the small currency of care. In the manor, the winter has become a test of endurance. The supplies are holding, but they are dwindling. The lord's wife calculates and recalculates, stretches and restretches. She has reduced the portions in the kitchen, eliminated the small luxuries, focused on the essentials. No one complains. Everyone understands. The winter is a shared hardship, a common enemy. They will defeat it together or they will not defeat it at all. The Lord spends his days in his solar, reading, writing letters, staring out the window at the white expanse of his lands. He thinks about the spring, about the planting, about the marriage alliance, about the future. The future is a distant country, as unreachable as the summer. He cannot touch it, cannot shape it. He can only prepare for it, as best he can, and wait. In the monastery, the copying monk continues his work. The manuscript is nearly complete. He is copying the final sections now, the recipes for plasters and poultices, the instructions for setting bones, the prayers to be said over the sick. He works slowly, carefully, savoring the last pages. When this manuscript is finished, there will be another text to copy, another chain of transmission to continue. The work is endless. That is its purpose. The work is the point, not the completion. The cold has seeped into the scriptorium, despite the brazier. The monk's fingers are stiff, his breath visible as he works. He pauses frequently to warm his hands over the small flame, to flex his fingers, to restore their flexibility. The work takes longer now, each letter requiring more effort, more concentration. He does not rush. Rushing would introduce errors, would break the chain. He moves at the pace the cold allows, patient as the winter itself. One afternoon, as he works, he hears a commotion from the courtyard. Voices raised, feet running. He sets down his quill and goes to the window. Below, he sees a group of monks gathered around a figure on the ground. A traveler, it seems, collapsed at the gate. The monks are lifting him, carrying him toward the infirmary. The copying monk watches for a moment, then returns to his desk. The traveler is not his concern. The infirmary monks will tend to him. His work is here in the scriptorium, in the words on the page. He picks up his quill and continues. In the infirmary, the traveler lies on a bed, his face pale, his breath shallow. He is young, perhaps 20, his clothes worn and inadequate for the cold. The infirmary monk examines him, feels his forehead, listens to his chest. The traveler has a fever, a deep cough, a weakness that suggests he has been ill for some time. The monk prepares a warming drink, helps the traveler swallow it. He covers him with extra blankets, places a warm stone at his feet. There is nothing more to be done, not yet. The traveler must rest, must let his body fight. The monk will watch, will wait, will do what he can. The traveler sleeps for a day, for 2 days. He wakes briefly, drinks, sleeps again. The fever does not break. It holds steady, a constant presence. The infirmary monk tries different remedies, different combinations of herbs. He applies poultices to the traveler's chest, gives him teas of yarrow and elderflower, speaks words of comfort and prayer. Nothing changes. The fever remains. On the 3rd day, the traveler wakes and speaks. His voice is weak, barely a whisper. He asks where he is. The monk tells him. He asks if anyone else has come, anyone from his village. The monk says no. The traveler closes his eyes. He does not speak again. The monk understands. The traveler is alone. He came from somewhere, from some village, but he left it behind. Perhaps the sickness came to his village. Perhaps he fled. Perhaps he is the only one who survived. The monk does not ask. It does not matter now. What matters is the body on the bed, the breath that still comes and goes, the small flame of life that has not yet been extinguished. The days pass. The traveler does not improve. He does not worsen. He remains in the space between, neither living nor dying, simply waiting. The infirmary monk tends him, feeds him, prays for him. The routine continues, unbroken by hope or despair. The traveler is a presence in the infirmary now, as familiar as the beds, as the window, as the small crucifix on the wall. In the village, the wise woman hears about the traveler. News travels slowly in winter, but it travels. The woodcutter tells her, having heard it from a servant at the manor who heard it from a monk. The wise woman listens, nods, says nothing. The traveler could be carrying the sickness, the one the other traveler spoke of months ago. Or he could be carrying something else, something less dangerous. There is no way to know. The monastery is separate from the village, isolated by its walls, by its rules, by the distance of the path through the woods. The sickness, if it is sickness, will stay there, contained. Or it will not. The wise woman adds this information to the store of things she holds, the possibilities, the probabilities, the small certainties that guide her decisions. She will do nothing different. She will continue as she always has. The waiting continues. The pregnant woman's time comes in the middle of the night. Her husband runs through the dark to the wise woman's cottage, pounding on her door. She wakes immediately, dresses, follows him back through the cold. The woman is in labor, her cries filling the small house. The wise woman takes charge, sending the husband to boil water, to fetch clean cloths, to stay out of the way. She sits with the woman, holds her hand, tells her to breathe, to push, to rest when she can. The labor is long. The hours pass, marked only by the woman's cries and the wise woman's quiet voice. The husband waits outside, pacing in the cold, praying to every saint he knows. The fire burns low, is rebuilt, burns low again. The night stretches on, endless and terrible. Just before dawn, the baby comes. A girl, small and red and screaming. The wise woman lifts her, cleans her, places her in her mother's arms. The woman's face, exhausted and tear-streaked, breaks into a smile. She holds the child against her chest, feeling the warmth of her small body, the flutter of her breath. The wise woman sits back, allowing herself a moment of rest. The work is done. Another life has entered the world. Another small victory has been won against the darkness. The husband comes in, sees his wife and daughter, and weeps. He thanks the wise woman over and over, his words tumbling out in a rush. She accepts his thanks quietly, tells him to care for his family, to keep them warm, to send for her if there is any trouble. She gathers her things and walks home through the gray dawn, her body heavy with fatigue. The snow is still there, the cold still there. Nothing has changed. Everything has changed. She sleeps through the morning, through most of the afternoon. When she wakes, the light is already fading. She builds the fire, heats water for tea, eats a little bread. She sits in her chair, her body aching, her mind quiet. The birth has taken something from her, some reserve of strength she did not know she was drawing on. She is older than she allows herself to think. The winters are harder now, the recovery slower. She does not dwell on this. She accepts it as she accepts everything. The body ages. The work continues. The end will come when it comes. In the monastery, the traveler dies, quietly, in his sleep, without warning. The infirmary monk finds him in the morning, cold and still. He closes the traveler's eyes, says a prayer, goes to inform the abbot. The traveler will be buried in the monastery graveyard, a small grave among the monks, a stranger even in death. The abbot approves. The traveler was a guest, a soul in need. He will be given the same dignity as any brother. The copying monk hears the news from the infirmary monk during the midday meal. He nods, says nothing, continues eating. The traveler was a stranger, a brief presence, now gone. His death does not affect the work. The work continues. The manuscript is nearly finished. Tomorrow or the next day he will write the final words, close the book, begin another. The chain of transmission continues, unbroken by the death of one traveler, one stranger, one small life. The winter continues. The days grow no longer, but there is a sense, a faint sense, that they might soon. The sun is slightly higher at midday. The cold is slightly less intense. The change is imperceptible, barely noticeable, but it is there. The village feels it in the way that villages feel such things. The waiting will not last forever. The spring will come. The wise woman feels it too. She sits by her fire, her hands idle, her eyes on the window. The light is different now, a little brighter, a little longer. She thinks about the planting, about the herbs she will need to gather, about the work of the warmer months. She thinks about the baby, the new life in the village. She thinks about the traveler, buried in the monastery graveyard, forgotten already by almost everyone. She thinks about all the lives she has tended, all the deaths she has witnessed. They are a long chain, stretching back through the years, connecting her to the past, to the future, to the endless cycle of birth and death and birth again. She closes her eyes. She rests. The fire crackles. The wind whispers. The world continues, patient and persistent, turning slowly toward the spring. The first signs of spring are subtle, easy to miss for those not watching closely. The snow begins to shrink, pulling back from the edges of paths, revealing patches of dark, wet earth. The icicles that have hung from the eaves for months begin to drip, a slow, steady percussion that marks the hours. The days are noticeably longer now, the light arriving earlier and leaving later. The village stirs from its long hibernation, emerging slowly, cautiously, into the change. The wise woman notices everything. She notices the way the light falls differently through her window. She notices the sound of dripping water, a sound she has not heard in months. She notices the first bird returning, a small brown thing perched on her roof, singing a song she remembers from 100 springs before. She sits by her fire less now, spends more time at her door, watching the world transform. The cold is still there, but it is a retreating cold, a cold that knows it has lost. In the village, the paths become mud. Walking is difficult, each step a small struggle against the suction of the wet earth. The villagers adapt as they always do. They move more slowly, choose their steps carefully, accept the mud as they have accepted the snow. The children love it, of course. They splash through puddles, their laughter sharp in the damp air. Their mothers call after them, half-hearted warnings that no one expects to be obeyed. The mud is a sign, a promise. The spring is coming. The woodcutter begins to think about the forest. The trees will need tending, the deadwood cleared, the new growth encouraged. He has not worked in the forest since the first snow, and the absence has left him restless. He walks to the edge of the village, looks at the dark line of trees against the pale sky. The snow is still deep in the forest, he knows. It will be weeks before he can enter, before the ground is firm enough to support him. But he looks anyway, imagining the work, the familiar rhythms of axe and saw. The pregnant woman, now a mother, emerges from her house for the first time since the birth. She carries the baby wrapped in layers of wool, held close against her chest. She walks slowly, carefully, her body still adjusting to its new shape, its new weight. She comes to the wise woman's cottage, knocks on the door. The wise woman opens it, sees the baby, smiles a small smile. The mother comes in, sits by the fire, unwraps the baby so the wise woman can see her. The baby is healthy, thriving, her eyes open and aware. The mother thanks the wise woman again, her voice thick with emotion. The wise woman waves the thanks away, tells her to focus on the baby, to rest when she can, to come back if she needs anything. The mother leaves, and the wise woman watches her go, the small figure picking her way through the mud, the baby a small bundle against her chest. In the manor, the lord's wife begins the spring cleaning. The great house has accumulated the dust and grime of winter, the smoke from countless fires, the evidence of months of close habitation. She directs the servants with quiet authority, assigning tasks, inspecting results, ensuring that everything is done properly. The tapestries are taken down and beaten. The floors are scrubbed. The windows are open to let in the fresh air, cold but clean. The house breathes again, shedding the weight of winter. The Lord rides out to survey his lands. His horse picks its way carefully along the muddy paths, the Lord's eyes scanning the fields, the woods, the distant hills. He notes the condition of the fences, the state of the streams, the places where the snow still lingers. He thinks about the planting, about the crops that will go into the ground when the soil is ready. He thinks about the tenants, about their rents, about their readiness for the work ahead. The winter has been hard, but not devastating. The manor has survived. The spring will bring renewal. In the monastery, the monks prepare for the season as well. The garden must be turned over, the soil prepared for planting. The herbs that have been dried and stored all winter will be replenished by fresh growth. The copying monk finishes his manuscript, writing the final words with a steady hand. He closes the book, sets it aside, and waits for the next text to be given to him. The work is never finished. It only pauses briefly before beginning again. The traveler's grave is a small mound in the monastery graveyard, marked by a simple wooden cross. No one visits it. No one remembers his name. He is part of the ground now, part of the monastery, part of the long chain of deaths that have nourished this soil for centuries. The monks walk past his grave without noticing, their minds on other things. The dead are not forgotten exactly. They are absorbed. They become part of the landscape, part of the routine, part of the endless cycle of prayer and work that defines the monastery's life. The wise woman walks to the forest's edge one afternoon, drawn by something she cannot name. The trees stand dark and silent, their branches bare against the sky. The snow is still deep beneath them, untouched by the sun that has cleared the village paths. She stands at the boundary between the known and the unknown, between the village and the wild, between winter and spring. She does not enter. She only stands, looking, breathing the cold air that still smells of snow. After a long moment, she turns and walks back to the village, her steps slow and deliberate. In the evening, she sits by her fire, the first fire of the spring that feels like a choice rather than a necessity. The warmth is pleasant, but not essential. She could sit in the dark, in the cool, and be comfortable enough. But the fire is company, a habit, a comfort. She watches the flames, her mind drifting. She thinks about the baby, the new life. She thinks about the traveler, the unknown death. She thinks about the forest, the darkness beneath the trees. She thinks about her own life, the long chain of winters and springs that have brought her to this moment. The spring advances slowly, reluctantly. The snow retreats inch by inch, day by day. The mud dries in patches, then gets wet again with the next rain. The villagers move through the transformation, their lives adjusting to the change. The woodcutter enters the forest at last, his axe over his shoulder, his boots sinking into the softening ground. He works all day, felling dead trees, clearing brush, preparing for the season's growth. He returns in the evening, tired but satisfied, the work of winter replaced by the work of spring. The mother brings the baby to the wise woman's cottage regularly now, not for treatment but for company. She is lonely, isolated in her small house with only the baby for company. The wise woman welcomes her, gives her tea, holds the baby while the mother rests. They sit together in the quiet, two women connected by the birth, by the care, by the simple fact of being alive in this small village at the edge of the world. The baby grows, changes, becomes more alert, more present. She watches the fire with wide eyes, her small face serious. In the manor, the preparations for planting begin in earnest. The plows are brought out, inspected, repaired. The oxen are fed extra rations, building strength for the work ahead. The Lord meets with his bailiff, discussing the fields, the crops, the rotation. The decisions made now will determine the harvest, will determine whether the next winter is one of plenty or of scarcity. The Lord feels the weight of this, the responsibility that comes with his position. He carries it quietly, as he carries everything. The lady of the manor continues her work as well. The still room needs replenishing, the dried herbs from last year nearly exhausted. She sends the servant girl into the fields and woods to gather the first spring plants, the nettles and dandelions, the young leaves of comfrey and plantain. The girl goes willingly, glad to be out of the house, glad to feel the sun on her face. She returns with her basket full, her cheeks flushed, her spirits high. The lady shows her how to prepare the plants, how to dry them, how to store them. The knowledge passes from one pair of hands to another, the chain continuing. The wise woman also gathers. She walks the edges of the village, the places where the snow has retreated first, where the early plants emerge. She fills her basket with the same things the servant girl gathers, the same nettles and dandelions, the same young leaves. She will dry them, store them, use them through the coming year. The work of gathering is patient, meditative. She moves slowly, her eyes on the ground, her hands reaching, selecting, harvesting. The plants are small now, fragile, but they will grow. By summer, they will be abundant, their leaves large, their flowers bright. But for now, these first small offerings are precious, a sign that the world is waking. One afternoon, as she gathers, she finds something unexpected. A plant she has not seen before, growing in a sheltered spot near the forest's edge. It is small, with leaves she does not recognize, a shape she cannot name. She kneels beside it, examines it closely. Could be a new herb, a new remedy. Could be a weed, useless or harmful. Could be something that has always been here, that she has simply never noticed. She does not know. She leaves it where it is, marking the spot in her memory. She will watch it, see what it becomes. The unknown is not something to fear. It is something to observe, to learn from, to incorporate into the vast store of knowledge she carries. She returns to her cottage as the light fades. She builds a small fire, prepares her evening meal. She eats slowly, her mind still on the unknown plant, on the forest, on the boundary between the known and the unknown. The world is full of things she does not know. She has accepted this long ago. Her knowledge is not complete, could never be complete. It is only enough to do the work, enough to help those who come to her. The unknown will always be there, waiting at the edges, patient as the winter. The night falls. The village settles into its evening routine. Fires are banked, doors are barred, families gather in the warm glow of their hearths. The wise woman sits in her chair, her hands idle, her eyes on the flames. The baby is safe with its mother. The woodcutter is home with his wife. The lord and lady are in their manor, the monks in their monastery. The traveler is in his grave. The unknown plant is in the dark, growing slowly, waiting to be discovered or ignored. The world continues, patient and persistent, turning toward the spring, toward the summer, toward the next winter, toward all the seasons that will come after. The wise woman closes her eyes. She rests. The fire crackles. The night is quiet. The waiting continues. The spring advances with a patience that mirrors the winter's retreat. The days grow longer, the light warmer, the earth softer. The village emerges fully from its long sleep, the paths becoming firm, the fields showing the first pale green of new growth. The animals sense it too, the cows more restless in their stalls, the chickens scratching more eagerly at the ground. The world is waking, and the waking is slow and deliberate. The wise woman's routine shifts with the season. She spends less time by the fire, more time outdoors. She walks the edges of the village, the paths into the forest, the banks of the stream that swells with meltwater. She gathers as she walks, filling her basket with the early plants, the ones that will not last. The nettles are tender now, good for eating, good for medicine. She picks the tops, careful not to touch the stems with her bare skin. The dandelion leaves are small and bitter, good for the digestion, good for the blood. She digs a few roots as well to dry and store. The comfrey is just emerging, its leaves still folded, waiting to unfurl. She notes its location will return when it is ready. The woodcutter spends his days in the forest, the work familiar and grounding. The trees are waking too, the sap rising, the buds swelling. He works among them with the ease of long practice, his axe finding the dead wood, the crowded wood, the trees that need to fall. The forest accepts him, tolerates him, continues its own slow growth around him. He is part of it, as much as the deer and the fox and the small birds that dart through the branches. In the manor, the planting begins. The fields are plowed, the furrows straight and deep. The oxen strain against the weight, their breath visible in the cool morning air. The sowers follow behind, their hands casting seed in wide arcs, the grain falling into the earth with a soft whisper. The work is ancient, unchanged for centuries. The same motions, the same hope, the same trust that the seed will grow, that the harvest will come, that the winter will be survived. The Lord watches from the edge of the field, his horse still beneath him. He has seen this 100 times, 1,000 times. It never loses its power, this moment of beginning. The earth opened, the seed planted, the future hidden in the soil. He stays for a long time watching, then turns and rides back to the manor. There is other work, always other work. The mother brings the baby to the wise woman's cottage almost daily now. The baby is growing, changing, her eyes following movement, her hands reaching for things. The mother is changing too, her body settling into its new shape, her mind adjusting to the constant demands of care. She is tired, always tired, but it is a different tired than the exhaustion of pregnancy. This tired has purpose, has meaning. She sits in the wise woman's cottage, the baby at her breast, and talks about nothing, about everything. The wise woman listens, nods, offers small words of comfort or advice. The connection between them deepens, becomes something more than healer and patient. It becomes friendship, the quiet companionship of women who understand each other. In the monastery, the copying monk begins a new manuscript. It is a collection of saints' lives, the stories of holy men and women who suffered and died for their faith. He copies the words with the same care he gave to the medical text, the same attention to each letter, each word, each page. The stories are familiar, many of them, but he reads them anew as he copies, finding new meanings, new connections. The saints are distant figures, removed by centuries, but their suffering is real, their faith is real. He feels a kinship with them, a connection across time. They too copied manuscripts, perhaps. They too sat in cold scriptoria, their fingers stiff, their minds focused on the words. The garden at the monastery is being prepared for planting. The monks work in the beds, turning the soil, adding compost, marking the rows. The infirmary monk supervises, directing the placement of each herb, each medicinal plant. The garden is his responsibility, his contribution to the community's health. He knows each plant, its properties, its needs, its season. He works slowly, deliberately, his hands in the earth, his mind at peace. The traveler's grave is almost invisible now, the mound settled, the wooden cross weathered. Grass is beginning to grow over it, small green blades pushing through the soil. In a year, it will be indistinguishable from the ground around it. In a century, no one will know who lies there or why. The monastery will continue, the graves will accumulate, the earth will absorb them all. It is the way of things, the way of all bodies, all lives. The wise woman walks to the forest's edge again, drawn by the same pull she felt before. The unknown plant is still there, larger now, its leaves spreading, its shape clearer. She kneels beside it, examines it carefully. It is not a plant she knows, not one her mother taught her, not one she has seen in any of the gardens or fields. Could be something new, something rare. Could be something common elsewhere, brought here by bird or wind. She does not know. She will watch it through the season, see it flower, see it seed. Perhaps then she will recognize it. Perhaps she will not. The unknown remains unknown, patient as ever. She returns to the village as the light begins to fade. The paths are firm now, easy to walk. The air is warm, soft, carrying the smell of damp earth and new growth. She passes houses where smoke rises from chimneys, where voices drift through open doors. The village is alive, awake, emerging from the long silence of winter. She feels it in herself, a stirring, a lightness, a sense of possibility. The spring does this every year. It lifts the weight, opens the heart, reminds the body that life continues. In the evening, she sits outside her cottage for the first time since autumn. The air is cool but not cold. She wraps a shawl around her shoulders and sits on the wooden bench by the door, watching the sky darken, the stars appear. The sounds of the village settle around her, the last calls of children, the lowing of cattle, the distant bark of a dog. She sits for a long time, not thinking, simply being. The night gathers, the stars brighten, the world quiets. The mother comes to her, the baby sleeping in her arms. She sits beside the wise woman on the bench, saying nothing. They sit together in the darkness, two women, one old, one young, one baby between them. The silence is comfortable, shared. The stars will overhead, indifferent and beautiful. The village sleeps. The forest waits. The unknown plant grows in the dark, hidden at the edge of the world. The night is deep and quiet and long. The spring deepens into a fullness that seems impossible after the long barren months. The trees unfold their leaves in stages, first a haze of green, then a deeper shade, then a canopy that filters the light into patterns on the ground. The fields are uniformly green now, the crops rising in orderly rows. The village is surrounded by growth, by life, by the insistent push of the world towards summer. The wise woman's days are full. The warmer weather brings more ailments, more injuries, more needs. The children play harder, fall more often, scrape their knees and elbows. The men work longer in the fields, their bodies aching at the end of each day. The women tend their gardens, their hands in the soil, their backs bent over the rows. The wise woman moves among them all, a constant presence, a source of comfort and care. Her basket is always with her, filled with the remedies she has prepared, the ointments and tinctures and dried herbs that are her tools. The unknown plant at the forest's edge has grown tall. It is waist-high now, with broad leaves and a thick central stalk. The wise woman visits it regularly, watching its progress, noting its changes. It has not yet flowered, but she can see the buds forming, small and tight at the top of the stalk. Soon it will reveal itself, show her what it is. She is patient. She has learned patience from the seasons, from the slow growth of plants, from the long waiting of winter. The woodcutter brings her news from the forest. A deer has been killed by wolves, its bones scattered in a clearing. A new stream has formed where the snowmelt carved a path through the hillside. A tree has fallen, its roots exposed, its trunk already covered with moss. The wise woman listens, nods, stores the information away. The forest is a living thing, constantly changing, constantly revealing itself. The woodcutter is her eyes there, her connection to the world beyond the village. In the manor, the lady of the house oversees the summer preparations. The still room must be stocked, the herbs gathered and dried, the ointments made. She works alongside the servant girl, teaching her the names of plants, the methods of preparation, the signs of quality. The girl learns quickly, her hands becoming sure, her knowledge growing. She will be ready one day to take over this work. The lady does not think about that day. It is far in the future, or it may never come. The work itself is enough, the passing on of knowledge, the continuation of the chain. The Lord rides his lands regularly, checking the crops, the fences, the tenants. The spring planting has gone well, the fields promising a good harvest. He allows himself a small satisfaction, a brief moment of optimism. The summer will bring its own challenges, its own uncertainties. But for now, the world is green and growing, and that is enough. The mother's baby is no longer a baby. She is a child now, crawling, pulling herself up on furniture, making sounds that will soon become words. The mother watches her with wonder, with amazement that this small person came from her body, grew inside her, emerged into the world. She brings her to the wise woman's cottage often, and the wise woman watches the child grow, watches the mother grow into her role. The three of them have become a small constellation, bound together by the birth, by the care, by the quiet companionship of their visits. The copying monk works steadily through the summer. The manuscript of saints' lives is complete, and he has begun another, a commentary on the Psalms. The words flow from his pen, day after day, the pages accumulating, the stack growing. He has stopped thinking about the texts as separate things. They are all part of one continuous work, one endless transmission of knowledge and faith. He is a conduit, a channel through which the past flows into the future. It is a humble role, but a necessary one. In the infirmary, a new patient lies in one of the beds. An old monk, failing, his body worn out by decades of prayer and labor. The infirmary monk tends him with the same quiet care he gave the traveler, the same attention to comfort, the same acceptance of what will come. The old monk is peaceful, ready, his mind already turned toward God. He speaks little, prays much, waits for the end. The infirmary monk sits with him in the silence, a presence, a witness. The summer solstice passes, the longest day, the turning point. The wise woman marks it without ceremony, simply noting the light, the warmth, the fullness of the world. The unknown plant has flowered, small white blossoms at the top of the stalk. She has examined them, smelled them, tasted a tiny piece of leaf. She still does not know what it is. It is not in any of the descriptions she carries in her memory. It is not in the stories her mother told her. It is simply itself, unknown, unnamed, growing at the edge of the forest. She does not harvest it. She does not use it. She watches it, learns it, waits. Perhaps next year she will understand. Perhaps the knowledge will come to her in a dream, or in a story from a traveler, or in the pages of a book she will never see. Perhaps it will remain unknown forever. This is acceptable. The unknown is not a threat. It is simply the limit of her knowing, the boundary of her world. The summer advances. The crops ripen, the days grow hot, the work intensifies. The villagers rise early, work late, fall into their beds exhausted. The wise woman is busier than ever, treating heat exhaustion, sunburn, the minor injuries of harvest. She moves through the fields, the gardens, the houses, her basket heavy with remedies, her feet carrying her where she is needed. She is tired at the end of each day, but it is a good tired, a tired that comes from useful work. The mother helps in the fields now, the child strapped to her back, sleeping or watching with wide eyes. The work is hard, but she is strong, stronger than she knew. The child is a weight, a presence, a reason to keep going. She works alongside the other women, their voices rising in song, their hands moving in rhythm. The child sleeps, wakes, nurses, sleeps again. The days blur together, A long stretch of sun and sweat and the smell of ripening grain. The woodcutter's work slows in the summer. The forest is dense with growth, difficult to move through. He spends his days closer to the village, repairing fences, mending tools, doing the small tasks that accumulate during the busier seasons. He visits the wise woman sometimes, bringing her wood for her fire, even though she needs less now. It is a habit, a ritual, a way of maintaining their connection. In the manor, the lady oversees the first harvests. The early vegetables are gathered, the herbs cut and dried, the fruits preserved. The still room fills with jars and bundles, the shelves groaning under the weight of the summer's abundance. The servant girl works alongside her, learning, growing, becoming indispensable. The lady watches her with satisfaction. The work continues. The knowledge passes. The Lord meets with his bailiff to assess the progress of the main harvest. The grain is tall and heavy, promising a good yield. The tenants are working hard, their efforts visible in the fields. The Lord nods, satisfied. The winter will be provided for. The manor will survive. The copying monk's hands ache in the summer heat. The scriptorium is warm, stuffy. The air thick with the smell of parchment and ink. He works anyway, steadily, persistently. The commentary on the Psalms is long, will take months to complete. He does not think about the end. He thinks only about the page before him, the words he is forming, the steady rhythm of the work. The old monk in the infirmary dies on a hot afternoon, his breath simply stopping between one moment and the next. The infirmary monk is with him, holding his hand. He closes the old monk's eyes, says a prayer, goes to inform the abbot. The death is expected, peaceful, a release. The old monk will be buried in the graveyard, his grave near the travelers, another small mound in the growing collection. The monks will pray for his soul, and then they will return to their work. The rhythm continues. The wise woman hears of the death from the woodcutter, who heard it from a servant. She nods, says nothing. Another life ended, another body returned to the earth. She thinks of the old monk whom she never knew, and of the traveler whom she never knew, and of all the others whose deaths she has witnessed or heard of. They are a long line, stretching back and forward, connecting the living to the dead, the known to the unknown. The summer wanes. The days grow shorter, the light softer. The crops are harvested, the fields bare, the earth ready for its rest. The villagers work frantically in the last weeks, gathering, storing, preparing. The wise woman works alongside them, treating the injuries of haste, the exhaustion of the final push. Her basket is light now, the summer's remedies used up, the jars and bundles in her cottage waiting for the winter. The unknown plant has set seed, small dark grains at the top of its stalk. The wise woman collects a few, wraps them in a piece of cloth, stores them in her cottage. She will plant them next spring, see what grows. Perhaps the plant will reveal itself then. Perhaps it will remain a mystery. She does not know. She accepts not knowing. The mother's child takes her first steps, a few unsteady paces before falling. The mother catches her, laughs, cries a little. The child is walking, is becoming independent, is growing away from her. The mother brings her to the wise woman to show her, the child's face proud, her steps determined. The wise woman watches, nods, smiles a small smile. Another milestone, another marker of the passage of time. The woodcutter prepares for winter, stacking wood, repairing his tools, checking his traps. The forest is changing, the leaves beginning to turn, the air cooling. He will enter it less often now, as the days shorten, as the cold returns. But he is ready. He is always ready. In the manor, the lady reviews her stores, calculating, planning. The winter will be provided for. The still room is full, the smokehouse full, the granary full. She allows herself a moment of satisfaction, then turns to the next task. The work is never finished. The Lord looks out over his lands, the fields bare, the trees turning, the sky gray with approaching autumn. The year has been good. The harvest has been sufficient. The manor is secure. He turns from the window and returns to his accounts, his letters, his endless responsibilities. The copying monk nears the end of the commentary. He can see the final pages approaching, the words accumulating, the conclusion drawing near. He works steadily, patiently, as he has always worked. The end is not important. The work is important. He continues. The wise woman sits outside her cottage in the evening, watching the light fade. The air is cool, carrying the smell of autumn, of leaves and earth and the first hint of coming cold. She wraps her shawl around herself and sits quietly, her hands still, her mind at peace. The unknown plant has given its seed. The mother's child is walking. The woodcutter is preparing. The world is turning, as it always turns, toward the dark, toward the cold, toward the waiting of winter. She sits in the gathering darkness, patient and present, part of the turning, part of the waiting. The night comes, and she is still there, watching, breathing, alive in the quiet. She moves through the fields, the gardens, the houses, her basket heavy with remedies, her feet carrying her where she is needed. She is tired at the end of each day, but it is a good tired, a tired that comes from useful work. The mother helps in the fields now, the child strapped to her back, sleeping or watching with wide eyes. The work is hard, but she is strong, stronger than she knew. The child is a weight, a presence, a reason to keep going. She works alongside the other women, their voices rising in song, their hands moving in rhythm. The child sleeps, wakes, nurses, sleeps again. The days blur together, a long stretch of sun and sweat and the smell of ripening grain. The woodcutter's work slows in the summer. The forest is dense with growth, difficult to move through. He spends his days closer to the village, repairing fences, mending tools, doing the small tasks that accumulate during the busier seasons. He visits the wise woman sometimes, bringing her wood for her fire, even though she needs less now. It is a habit, a ritual, a way of maintaining their connection. In the manor, the lady oversees the first harvests. The early vegetables are gathered, the herbs cut and dried, the fruits preserved. The still room fills with jars and bundles, the shelves groaning under the weight of the summer's abundance. The servant girl works alongside her, learning, growing, becoming indispensable. The lady watches her with satisfaction. The work continues. The knowledge passes. The Lord meets with his bailiff to assess the progress of the main harvest. The grain is tall and heavy, promising a good yield. The tenants are working hard, their efforts visible in the fields. The Lord nods, satisfied. The winter will be provided for. The manor will survive. The copying monk's hands ache in the summer heat. The scriptorium is warm, stuffy, the air thick with the smell of parchment and ink. He works anyway, steadily, persistently. The commentary on the Psalms is long, will take months to complete. He does not think about the end. He thinks only about the page before him, the words he is forming, the steady rhythm of the work. The old monk in the infirmary dies on a hot afternoon, his breath simply stopping between one moment and the next. The infirmary monk is with him, holding his hand. He closes the old monk's eyes, says a prayer, goes to inform the abbot. The death is expected, peaceful, a release. The old monk will be buried in the graveyard, his grave near the travelers, another small mound in the growing collection. The monks will pray for his soul, and then they will return to their work. The rhythm continues. The wise woman hears of the death from the woodcutter, who heard it from a servant. She nods, says nothing. Another life ended, another body returned to the earth. She thinks of the old monk whom she never knew, and of the traveler whom she never knew, and of all the others whose deaths she has witnessed or heard of. They are a long line, stretching back and forward, connecting the living to the dead, the known to the unknown. The summer wanes. The days grow shorter, the light softer. The crops are harvested, the fields bare, the earth ready for its rest. The villagers work frantically in the last weeks, gathering, storing, preparing. The wise woman works alongside them, treating the injuries of haste, the exhaustion of the final push. Her basket is light now, the summer's remedies used up, the jars and bundles in her cottage waiting for the winter. The unknown plant has set seed, small dark grains at the top of its stalk. The wise woman collects a few, wraps them in a piece of cloth, stores them in her cottage. She will plant them next spring, see what grows. Perhaps the plant will reveal itself then. Perhaps it will remain a mystery. She does not know. She accepts not knowing. The mother's child takes her first steps, a few unsteady paces before falling. The mother catches her, laughs, cries a little. The child is walking, is becoming independent, is growing away from her. The mother brings her to the wise woman to show her, the child's face proud, her steps determined. The wise woman watches, nods, smiles a small smile. Another milestone, another marker of the passage of time. The woodcutter prepares for winter, stacking wood, repairing his tools, checking his traps. The forest is changing, the leaves beginning to turn, the air cooling. He will enter it less often now, as the days shorten, as the cold returns. But he is ready. He is always ready. In the manor, the lady reviews her stores, calculating, planning. The winter will be provided for. The still room is full, the smokehouse full, the granary full. She allows herself a moment of satisfaction, then turns to the next task. The work is never finished. The Lord looks out over his lands, the fields bare, the trees turning, the sky gray with approaching autumn. The year has been good. The harvest has been sufficient. The manor is secure. He turns from the window and returns to his accounts, his letters, his endless responsibilities. The copying monk nears the end of the commentary. He can see the final pages approaching, the words accumulating, the conclusion drawing near. He works steadily, patiently, as he has always worked. The end is not important. The work is important. He continues. The wise woman sits outside her cottage in the evening, watching the light fade. The air is cool, carrying the smell of autumn, of leaves and earth and the first hint of coming cold. She wraps her shawl around herself and sits quietly, her hands still, her mind at peace. The unknown plant has given its seed. The mother's child is walking. The woodcutter is preparing. The world is turning, as it always turns, toward the dark, toward the cold, toward the waiting of winter. She sits in the gathering darkness, patient and present, part of the turning, part of the waiting. The night comes, and she is still there, watching, breathing, alive in the quiet.